So this afternoon we've got quite a packed agenda. That's the there's the agenda for this afternoon. We're going to focus a bit on Ofsted, have a bit of discussion, thinking about impact, what our Careers Hub performance and priorities are for this year, and just a few updates on dates for the diary. So just so that we can get ahead, because I know people are on tight schedules this afternoon, so I'm going to hand over to Jackie to talk about the Ofsted bit. So welcome everybody. Oh, and if you could please make sure that you've signed in the chat who you are and what school you're from, just so that we are aware. Thanks very much. Thank you. Sorry, Jackie.
No, that's no problem. Good afternoon, everybody. Those who I haven't said hello to. I personally can't wait for a face-to-face meeting, because my dogs will be a nightmare now, anything after 4 o'clock. So apologies if they start barking. Can't wait to have a meeting without dogs in the background. But anyway, preparing for Ofsted, we've purposely put this on first because Barry from Moseley School, one of our careers leads, has kindly offered to give some feedback today on a recent Ofsted inspection he had. But why we've put this in is we're aware that many of you have attended the CEC Ofsted training that's been the webinars and the online training that's been going on, and we've had some very good feedback about that, so it's very current for many of you. And also over the summer with the white paper coming out, and I know lots of you are on the careers lead, all sorts of the Facebook pages and other media, very much about the Baker Clause and your access policy, and that is going to be a focus of Ofsted. So we thought what we would do to start today was firstly to hear from Barry, his experience of recent Ofsted inspection, because we know it's important that actually you hear it straight from the horse's mouth, so you get the opportunity to hear from one of you guys who's experienced it. Louise is going to give a bit of feedback of another school that's had an Ofsted inspection, and then just an opportunity to have 10 minutes in a breakout room, really, just to do a general discussion around Ofsted, to identify if there's any further support that you may want, or if there's you've experienced an inspection that you want to share, or just, you know, good practice of things that you're doing in preparation. Firstly, I think Barry's on the call. Barry, I think I saw him somewhere.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes. Hi, Barry. You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
He survived. He survived the Ofsted inspection. I think we met, didn't we, the morning that they'd arrived, or the afternoon, and you said, I don't think they want to speak to me, and I think I said, oh, be prepared, they may do, and they did. So could you just share your experience, Barry, with how it went and the sort of things they asked you?
Yeah, sure. So we were inspected on the 28th and 29th of September. Now, ironically, I was due to attend the Careers Enterprise Company training about preparing for Ofsted on the actual first day of the inspection on the Tuesday, which I still attended. And I was trying to work out, was it too late or was it timely? And it actually was helpful, because it got me into thinking about what might come off in the kind of Ofsted inspection. And it also got me thinking about the new Ofsted framework for inspection. So it was kind of a good bit of preparation. I actually met the Chief Inspector alone on the second day in the afternoon. Now, 4 key areas came up in that conversation. The first one, not surprisingly, was the Baker Clause. And obviously doing the gaps for benchmarks and getting lots of people involved in coming to school to do talks, that was quite easy to kind of address. But that was the first question they asked about. A theme of the inspection generally was SEN students, so they kind of asked me about what support we give from a careers point of view to SEN students. So that was the second area. The third area, Jackie will be glad to know, was all around Gatsby. So they started off gently by asking, you know, give a good example of something we're doing, but then they honed in specifically on benchmark 4 and careers across the curriculum, and that's what we were doing there. So obviously that was an opportunity to talk about all the recent developments we have been doing, but it was interesting that they kind of honed in straight on that one. The fourth area was a bit of a kind of niche question. It was around post-18 progression, but it was more about how we prepare students who are taking a degree for life after their degree. So where's that degree going to lead to? I did have to remind the inspector that university wasn't the only option available there after A-levels, which he kind of agreed with. I mean, essentially, that they were the four main areas, and I've got to say, I found it quite an enjoyable, relaxed meeting. It was a good opportunity to talk about careers and to talk about what we were doing. I know in their feedback to the head teacher and to the governors, they did mention careers for details. And I guess, like many of us, I probably did over-prepare in terms of having attended the Ofsted inspection. It kind of scared me a little bit at the end training. It scared me a little bit into thinking about all the things that might come up. So I was frantically kind of preparing for all those kind of questions. You know, whether that was around, you know, kind of demonstrating impact, or how we use data to inform the programme, etc., etc. I was kind of getting my head all around that. But in the end, they were the four main areas that came up, and it was quite straightforward in a sense, I think. See what they put in the report.
It was interesting, Barry, that you said actually you quite enjoyed it because it was an opportunity to share a lot of the great things that you do at Moseley. And I think, you know, careers leaders who are on, you are doing some great stuff. And I think it is nice to have the opportunity to sit with an Ofsted inspector and actually, you know, talk about the good things you're doing. So you know, it's not all bad. And, you know, I experienced two Ofsted inspectors as a careers leader. And like Barry, I felt the same. I had a lot to talk about, but I also had things to talk to them about that we weren't doing quite well. And they were very open to that. You know, Barry, you nodded there. I didn't think they were ever after a perfect picture.
No, they weren't. I mean, I mentioned Gaps Benchmark 4. I talked about all the kind of curriculum lessons we developed and what we were doing during National Careers Week in every single lesson from year 7 to 10. But I said, you know, that's the start really. We want to embed it more into the kind of curriculum intent, and we've asked the faculties this year to do that, to put careers into the curriculum intent. So I said it was an evolving programme. I said, you know, no way are we saying anything is perfect. What he actually said to me at that point, he said to me, well, if you did say it was perfect, we wouldn't believe you. Yeah. So it's about what you're doing and what you plan to do and the developments and ideas you've got around that as well. So the other thing I could tell he was impressed with, in that obviously as a careers leader, I am also level 6 qualified, and he homed in on that at one point because obviously that was a key requirement as well. So he kind of smiled at that bit.
Okay, now Barry's got to go in about 10 minutes. So while we've got Barry, would anybody like to ask any questions? Anything you'd like to ask Barry, particularly about his experience?
I've obviously bored enough people already.
Can I just ask a question, Barry? Was Ofsted interested? Do you have careers, Mark? Were they interested in whether you had careers, Mark, when you had the meeting?
No, it didn't come up. We haven't done it. I mean, ironically, when I was in Birmingham Career Service, I used to manage the Quality Award for Birmingham Career Service. So obviously, obviously believe in those things. But it's something Moseley had never been interested in doing, and it didn't come up in conversation. I guess they. I guess the home and gets some benchmarks. I think that was kind of the theme around things. And I must say, from a careers enterprise company point of view, the day before, I'd got the summary of how we were doing against other schools. So I kind of printed that off and shared it with them as well. So I could share the information that you gave to me as well. But no, that didn't come up specifically.
I just know when we had ours, this was obviously before the new, you know, the new schedule. Once we'd said we've got the careers mark, he wasn't really interested. You know, we kept telling him what else he was doing, but for him, I suppose his benchmark was the fact that we'd got that quality award.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I can see that.
And Barry alluded there to the information that we sent out. We sent out a couple of weeks ago a letter to all head teachers of all the hub schools. We copied you all in, careers leads, and in that was a graph, a visual with your school and how it compared to the Birmingham Gatsby benchmark achievements as a whole. So that's what Barry alluded to there. Any other questions for Barry?
I think there's one in the chat. how important, from Nusrat, how important did the inspectors deem careers?
It's difficult to answer that one. It'll be interesting to see what comes out in the report. He specifically asked to see me, and lots of people didn't get asked to be seen.
Yeah.
And he wanted to see me alone,
yeah,
without anyone else around, to get my kind of careers perspective on it. So there was a genuine interest there, and in the meeting, it did kind of show the same kind of level of interest, and asking some good questions, and it felt like a conversation, a natural conversation where someone was interested in finding out what was going on. So
I think for a 2-day inspection, as you said, Barry, the fact that you were asked to be seen, you actually had a meeting with an inspector. If they've only got 2 days, obviously to me that says that it's important, it's on their radar and it's on the agenda. Because as you said, other people weren't seen, so I think we can take that from that, hopefully.
Well, if the report may come out and he may kind of slag us off for, I know, but it didn't seem to be that kind of going that way. Obviously, the outcome of the inspection is confidential, and I can't say what that is, but we obviously got an idea of what we think it is until it's obviously published. But
can I ask, what kind of SEN questions did he ask? Or they ask?
Basically, what specific support we were given towards SEN, and how we were ensuring that they were getting the support they needed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there's another question in the chat about what data did they request or did you use to support the discussion?
Well, having attended the preparing for Ofsted thing, I prepared lots of data. I took along loads of paperwork, but I think some of that was about reassuring myself. I like to over prepare and prepare for meetings. You never know what's going to come up. But to be honest, it didn't. He saw my pile and said, "Oh, he made a little joke." I think he kind of made a bit of a joke about it. But he then pointed to what was in front of him. He had loads of information in front of him. He didn't want more information. And I think by the afternoon of the second day, I think we already made the judgment, and it was just looking to triangulate and see what I was saying, kind of tallying with what other people had said was going on, whether it be in the sixth form or key stage 3, key stage 4, etc. So it didn't want lots of paperwork. The only piece of paperwork I thrust upon them was the summary I mentioned earlier. The graph showing progress against the gaps for benchmarks. But I could have given him lots of information, but he didn't want it.
But also, Barry, your website is very comprehensive, isn't it, with the information? So if they'd have looked at that, a lot of the things they'd have wanted to have seen would have been on there. And again, my experience was the inspector actually said to me, "You haven't got to tell me about that because I've seen your program on the website. I want to ask around that. That's the information that's there." So it could be that a lot of the things they picked up from the website anyway.
I mean, the website, I'm assuming they tend to look at those things before coming out, don't they? And to say, we meet all the statutory requirements, and there's lots of careers information, advice and guidance on the website, lots of useful information. There's a question there, did they talk to students about careers education? I don't know. They spoke to students about lots of things. I don't know whether careers came up specifically because I wasn't there, sorry.
There's also questions about work experience. Did they speak to you about work experience and Compass Plus?
No, only in the context, I guess you could have brought it up as part of the Gatsby benchmarks discussion. He knew what we were doing against the Gatsby benchmarks. He had evidence of that. It didn't come up specifically.
Okay, Barry, that was fabulous. Thank you very much for giving up your time, and hopefully that was really useful for everyone. It certainly helps us as a hub team when we hear that a school's had an inspection, and we always ask for feedback because we do like to get this information out to you all. So thank you, Barry. So Louise, you've got a bit of feedback about Mayfield?
Yeah, so Mayfield said they had a positive experience with Ofsted as well. They had their Ofsted more at the earlier part of the year, so last academic year. So a few of the bullet points that they shared with me was that they asked about the curriculum offer and how it relates to careers, how they meet careers requirements, examples of opportunities relating to careers, and they asked for 2 separate examples from Key Stage 3 and from Key Stage 5. They did ask lots of questions around figures, and an example of this is the number of students in year 11 and 14, the breakdown of their needs. So Mayfield School is a special school, just to ensure that you know that it's not a mainstream school. There was also discussions around destinations, such as the post-16 offer and the suitability of placements post-19. At what stage transition was discussed with students and how. They had discussions about their careers advisor and whether they were SEND specialists. And then they also asked about how COVID has impacted careers. Unfortunately, the careers leaders are not on the call to give you any further information, but that is what they shared with me, and they were happy for me to share that with you today.
Sorry, muted myself. Okay, thanks for that, Louise. And, you know, any questions that you've got around the things that Louise just said there, then please pop them in the chat and Louise can take that back to Mayfield if there's anything specific. But hopefully you've seen from those couple of examples that actually Ofsted are about. They haven't wasted any time in getting back into schools in the first half term. So we thought what would be useful now is if we, I can't move my slides on. Can't move the slides on.
For the breakout rooms?
Go to the breakout rooms.
And there are 2 questions. If you can't move the slides along, I'll just mention them.
I don't know what's going on.
So the 2 questions that we have for you to discuss in the breakout rooms are, what have been schools' recent experience of Ofsted? So that's anyone else who's had an Ofsted inspection or heard from other people. What have their recent experiences been? And then the other question is, what information are you collating to prepare for Ofsted / measure impact? So those are 2 of the main questions that we'd like you to discuss.
Okay, thanks for that. I think everybody's back now. And obviously, conscious of time as we always are, I think there was a member of the team in each group. Any general feedback, any key points that have been raised in any of the groups? Sharon, do you want to start?
I can start, yes. Let me just show my face. Okay then, so nobody in our group had a recent Ofsted. Okay, so how I started it off was imagining that, because one of my schools that I work in or that I'm leading, I had a meeting with her back in September, and she says to me that she's due an Ofsted inspection, but she's not sure when. And then I had a phone call yesterday to say that her Ofsted, she's had a phone call and the Ofsted's taking place today. Okay, so I said to the group, well, imagine that you've had no recent Ofsted, but imagine that you had a phone call, just like the careers leader that I was talking about, and they said that they're coming in tomorrow. How would you prepare? So that's how we looked at that. And the key thing that the main message was that, you know, you make sure that you have everything in place beforehand. So you're not necessarily just preparing or working to prepare for Ofsted.
Absolutely.
You're doing that work anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the main message. And so we looked at some of the data that people would use in terms of if Ofsted came in. And it was about, one of the things that we said was, collecting evidence so it can show the impact of what you're doing, about having regular audits. So they would have made sure that they've had regular audits so they can show that information, and about the use of Unifrog, using that platform to show what students have been up to, and using questionnaires as well. And someone was saying that about analysing beforehand over a period of time the attendance, behaviour of students over a period of time, so they know they can have a targeted approach with those students. And also targeting support for vocational routes and those who want to follow an academic pathway.
Yeah.
Okay. We also talked about SEND as well, because on the back of what Barry was saying, we were talking about, well, how does your programme or your provision differentiate for SEND students? Okay, and someone was saying that they're in a school, and they had well, it was a careers advisor. She says that she saw 3 visual impaired students who were in the 6th form but were there from year 11, and it's about they had a planning for additional adulthood day, and so careers is built into that day. Planning for adulthood day, yes, the careers is built into that day, and they track students, and they were tracking students. Was there anything else? And somebody also mentioned in terms of SEND is that they make sure they have termly review meetings with the SENCO, but also in terms of the career guidance that they get, they make sure that the career guidance interview, they have an extended time period. So it probably won't be just for half an hour, it's extended beyond that, just to make sure students have the time to make sure that they've understood what's being said.
It's that differentiation, isn't it? It's showing that your programme is differentiated and not just one size fits all, but you're doing things that will meet the needs of those individual students.
That's correct. I don't know if I've missed anything. If I've missed anything from the group that I was in, I don't know if anyone wants to chip in or put it in the chat.
Put it in the chat. Julie, Claire, anything different you want to add from your groups?
Yes, certainly. I mean, Emma, as she alluded to earlier, Emma from Challoner has just come literally back from an Ofsted discussion. And it reflected really very much of Barry's experience around the Baker Clause, Benchmark 4. But she said one question that did take her by surprise was about how careers provision extends to alternative provision students, which was quite an interesting question. It was part of a group discussion, not a one-to-one, so she had limited time really to get the message across, quite informal. Ofsted was interested in how her careers programme had been adapted since the lessons learned through lockdown about having a hybrid approach and that opportunity to reflect on what works best for the students. Emma did recommend, in preparation for Ofsted, the National Careers website has some good advice, National Careers Week website, on categories to focus on in preparing for an Ofsted discussion, which is something worth looking at. And also we had some discussion around the CDI framework, and Emma talked about how she'd mapped the curriculum against the new CDI framework, and showing the Ofsted inspector that you've got that awareness of what's happening across the whole school. So I hope that's an accurate reflection of our discussion. So clearly Emma's quite, it's still quite resonant with her, but please add anything in the chat if I've missed anything, but certainly we will share the CDI framework after the meeting to ensure that people have got sight of that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Claire, finally.
Yeah, so nobody in our group actually had experience of a recent Ofsted, but we did talk about the Quality in Careers mark, because I know Jenny has recently got that for BMET, and also I know Lisa Millward at Erdington mentioned that recently as well. Lisa mentioned that the inspector, this was last year I think, I'm not sure, Lisa, was very keen on finding out that they had the quality mark, and once they knew they had that, they kind of eased off a bit. Also Jenny mentioned that it was great to kind of, when she was preparing the evidence for that, it was great to chart the struggles over the last kind of few years, and as Jenny put it, it exposed the holes when she was gathering evidence, but also highlighted where they were really good. And I think sometimes when we think audit and preparing for Ofsted, we have a fear and there's a panic of all this kind of information that we need to have at hand. But actually, we forget that we're also highlighting the positives and things we are doing well, and that exposing the holes clearly is actually very healthy. And Ofsted recognised that, I think, as well.
Yeah.
If you know where you're not doing so well, as you mentioned earlier, Jackie, they're fine with that. And obviously, you know, in Jenny's case, she was saying that they understand there was reduced benchmark 6 and benchmark 7 due to COVID, of course. But, you know, they were appreciative of the fact that things were kept going virtually somehow, you know, that, you know, the college Trump were trying. We then talked about, linked to that fear element, that it's also important that it's a united team effort. So I know at BMet, from their quality and careers mark, they're moving on now to where it's not just Jenny who's responsible for this impact, it's actually work experience tutors, personal tutors, curriculum leaders, and ultimately the SLT and principal. And that's how it should be really for schools as well. What else did we mention? We heard from Joe at Wilson Stewart, who's quite new to careers, but is kind of faced with this role of collecting, evidence and thinking about how to capture what's going on. So I mentioned the Careers and Enterprise website, which maybe if you're new to the role, people might not be aware of, but the Careers and Enterprise website, if you click on careers leaders and the resource directory, there is an impact evaluation toolkit in there that has all the templates for you. And I know my colleague Sharon will be talking about this shortly, but it does have templates there for you to help you to gather evidence, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel really. We'll put that link in the chat. And we also highlighted that, yes, maybe for a big FE college, a SurveyMonkey or Google Docs might be good to gather evidence, but actually from students or parents, etc. But it doesn't have to be that. It could be a student forum at lunchtime where you've asked your year 11s to just gather together, maybe a few from each year group even, just to gather some evidence, or you could sit in with them and then pass that on to you, so you're getting some information on what their opinions are. Similarly for teachers or parents, you could just have a forum. It doesn't have to be each and every person. I think that was everything. Does anybody that needs to add anything else? The link's just gone into the chat for the
Thank you, Claire. And Sharon's going to talk about the impact evaluations in a moment. And I think, it would be amiss to move on without saying we've spoken about Ofsted, but obviously the real reason why we're doing it is for the student experience, and that, that's in the forefront of our mind, and Ofsted is in secondary really. But if we're doing a good job with our students, then, Ofsted are going to be happy with us. So we're doing it for the students, not Ofsted. I never like to forget that. Okay. Moving on then to the last bit I'm going to say, I know a few of you have already attended this Ofsted workshop, but a lot of positive feedback. There is another one on the 17th of November, 10 till 12. So the link will be in the slides that will go out. It has actually gone out in Network News, I think, this link as well, and in our resource bulletin this week. If you're interested and you'd like to do the CEC 2-hour training, then there's the link for that. We mentioned Baker Clause at the beginning. We are inviting some schools to a mini clinic next week where we're going to focus on the Baker Clause, more than just the policy, but actually the delivery and the impact. So some of you will be having an invitation for that. If you don't get an invitation that you feel you would like to attend, I think it's next Tuesday it's running, then just contact your enterprise coordinator and we can get you booked onto that. Okay, that's it from me. So thank you very much. Hope you found that useful. I'm going to hand over to Sharon now, who's on mute. I'll carry on with the slides, Sharon.
Oh, thank you very much, Jackie. Okay then, so impact evaluation. Okay then, so evaluations really should be at the heart of your careers provision. And it links to benchmark 1 requirements. It shouldn't really be left to the end of the year to do this evaluation, but it should be built on everything you really do. So everything you do, it should be thinking about, why are we doing this? What are we trying to achieve? And so by thinking through all that, and by thinking through that way, and you've got that in the forefront of your mind, it does help you recognize the impact that you're having. And we've already established just through what we've been talking about, that the impact of what we do is really important. That's why we're doing it, to make that difference. Okay, so by doing your evaluations or having an evaluation at regular times, it can help you evaluate the gaps, identify the gaps. It can help you identify the impact that you're having on the program. And it can help you build a program, a careers program, which is responsive to your students' needs, high quality as well. Okay, so it is about trying to improve the effectiveness of your careers program. It is about trying to demonstrate the value of the careers that you put on for your students. Okay, and as I say earlier, it is linked to benchmark 1. Okay, so how do we approach impact evaluation? Well, impact evaluation, really, it's a cycle and it consists of 4 parts. You can see by the slide up there that once you've got your career strategy in plan and you've got your program, impact evaluation is the last one, and that's what we're focusing on today. So it's in 4 parts, first of all, the plan. And the plan is all about setting your priorities, your outcome, and the outcomes that you want your students to achieve. Okay. The collecting is all about collecting the data. So whether that's data to show how you're preparing students for their next steps, whether that's data to show how your program is targeting or tackling students who are underachieving or students who are beginning to disengage. So if you know that that's an issue or a priority for you to tackle, okay, that's when you can put together in your program and then start to collect the evidence or the data as you're going along, so you can see what's working, what isn't working, and how you can move things on. Okay, again, the review part, that's about analysing the evidence, but it's not just about analysing the evidence. Once you've analysed it, it's about sharing that evidence with different audiences. So whether that's with the governors, whether that's with the wider staff, your senior leadership team, it's about sharing it. Okay, and the last one, act, I suppose it's self-explanatory. It's acting on the evidence. Okay, setting the strategic priorities and developing an action plan in terms of how to move forward. So let's look at the resources and support that can help you. Okay, yeah, thank you. So the CEC have developed a impact evaluation tool. So, and it's a guide on how you can approach evaluations. It's located in the CEC resource directory. And as I said, I'll make sure that the link goes in the chat. Oh, I think it's already in there. Great, thank you. And it really covers the different types of evidence that you can use to demonstrate impact. And it also has practical tools and further guidance on delivering or gathering the impact evidence. Okay. So that's just a whistle-stop tour, really, of introducing you to the tools that can support you to gather impact, and also a whistle-stop tour about evaluation and about not really leaving it to the last moment, about gathering it as you go along. So some of the key messages that I want to take away from this is that evaluation is a process. It's something that you should be doing all term, all the time, rather than just a one-off event. Important to analyze the data you collect and share your findings. So, you know, you should be working with other people in the school, not just yourself, in order to come up with that plan. And evaluation, it's a pointless exercise if you don't act on what you find. So use the findings to inform, you know, how you develop your career plan. I'm going to leave it there. Just want to know if there's any questions or anything you want to put in the chat. I'm just looking through the chat just to see if there's anything, just to see if I've missed anything or okay. Can't really see anything.
Sharon, it's Jenny here from BMET.
Hi, Jenny.
Just to say, we do huge higher education fairs each year, and we haven't done them last year because of COVID, and they were really popular this year. But because of the COVID threat, we reduced them by 50% in terms of the numbers of universities that came, and we targeted those universities that our students have been to in larger numbers. We set aside time on the day of the event to evaluate. We tried to do SurveyMonkey, it didn't work because of the numbers. So we just did a sample of 40 at each event over 3 days. And it enabled me to just, I'm sharing cheats really. I got the number of students that attended, a straw poll of what they thought, how many thought, you know, thought it was good to excellent, and as a percentage, and just blotted that out to the managers of each college. By the time the third one happened, the managers were watching to see, have they done as well as the other colleges? And everybody knew that those HE events had happened, and that was enough for me as an impact.
Yeah.
Because we'd done the evaluation on the day, at the end of each event, and only allowed an hour to do it, it had value. It was immediate, and that's it. And now we know what we're going to do next year, and it was easier rather than me doing a report 6 months from now, having to go back and tie it up. So I think I just learnt, right, that's it. I'm simplifying this. Otherwise, we're all going to go grey very quickly over SurveyMonkey or whatever for every event, and I'm using it as a marketing tool to raise the profile of careers at the college. This has happened, and this is what happened as a result of it. The principal then starts to make comments, appreciating. They don't know the full detail of what we're doing, do they? But it does carve a pathway of what CEIG is and who should be contributing to it and how. And that's my message on impact, is just make the evaluation a priority, which I think is what you're saying, Sharon.
Yeah.
Make it easy, make it quick.
And great. And as Jackie put in the chat, that yeah, it is about quality rather than quantity, and it is making it easy, but about targeting certain students, or targeting what you want to achieve, what you want to learn about your students, or what you want to learn about where your gaps possibly are. Okay, then. Thank you everybody for that. If there's nothing else, then we can move on. Jackie, Julie, is it you that's going to be doing this next bit?
Okay, yes, sorry. Yes, thanks very much. Jackie, are you going to drive? Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to cover this next section on some of our priorities, where we are, performance in the hub, and what our priorities are for 21-22. And I'd welcome any feedback, comments, etc., you know, about how this matches your priorities, your careers development plan. I'm sorry it's going to be me for about the next 5 minutes. Mike should have been covering this, but unfortunately he's been called away to deal with an emergency. So yeah, it'll be me for a few minutes. Okay, so the previous slide is about the benchmark achievement at the end of at the end of the summer term last year. And Barry alluded to the letter that we sent out to schools showing your individual school progress against the Birmingham performance, and this gives a bit of a taste of our journey. And I think despite the challenges, and you know, somebody mentioned 20, we thought that 2020 was a difficult year, but I think this year has been quite a challenge as well. And despite that, we have moved on from the baseline performance. And you can see there that particularly benchmark 1, where we were able to give some support with schools for that. And surprisingly for me, benchmark 7 seems to be quite healthy, because I know some schools have had problems in accessing HE/FE providers for benchmark 7 because of the virtual world, but you can see that we've been, made some positive progress, and no surprises that for benchmark 5 and 6, encounters with employers in the workplace, we've seen a dip, which is no surprises, and that's reflected nationally as well. Okay, so it's a reasonably healthy position, and one from which we can continue to make progress. The next slide looks, I think, at the enterprise advisors, which still remains a priority for Birmingham Careers Hub. That we know that some schools have lost their enterprise advisors, and we're still in the process of doing matches. And that shows a breakdown across the whole hub, and I think we're about 65% of schools and colleges currently matched, which is a huge priority for us this year. The next slide is around Compass Plus. That again, that is still important for us, and some schools are beginning to see the benefit of using that to plan and evaluate their careers programmes. And we are still in the process. A number of schools have already upgraded, some in the process of upgrading, and we're still working with those schools who are not engaging with the upgrading process, which could be for a variety of reasons. And obviously we welcome that peer-to-peer support, where schools who are utilising Compass Plus can support those who are in the process of upgrading. So that gives us a bit of the view top, view from the mountain, as it were, and where our starting point is for the beginning of this academic year. Okay, so looking at the next slide about the careers and enterprise vision, I think that diagram Jackie mentioned earlier, really, about with Ofsted, it's so, we were talking about what evidence for the Ofsted, but young people are still very much at the heart of what we do, and the centre of what we're doing, and it is about outcomes for those young people, supported by careers leaders, yourselves, your enterprise advisors, and the tools that include Compass Plus to help you plan your activity, target groups, and evaluate what you're doing. And around that, that's supported by the structure that includes your enterprise coordinator, our team, the hub, the local leadership and expertise, and the training and resources that are on offer. And that's supported by those objectives, the principles that support us around quality, best practice, and business engagement. So some of the focuses is around, for the careers and enterprise company, about making sure we have a powerful careers leader in every school, that there's strategic engagement with businesses through the Enterprise Advisor Network and our cornerstone employers who support the hub, that there's specific employers who support the hub in meeting our objectives. So business engagement remains a key focus. And having that local hub structure to help us coordinate activity, and more people are looking to the hub now to see that framework for providing a structure for schools to engage with businesses and businesses to engage with schools, and being supported by the National Careers and Enterprise Company to ensure that we're working towards consistent higher standards and based on research on what actually works. The Careers and Enterprise Company, they call it their objectives for this year, the Magnificent 7, which our plan is going to be very much based on. And there'll be no surprises there, really, around amplifying technical and vocational routes. We've talked a lot this afternoon about the Baker Clause and making sure that young people have access to providers of technical pathways. So that is a key priority for us and again for our young people. Having a self-improving system. Sharon talked just now about it's not about one-off activities, but very much building a system, you know, that we can develop the expertise and, you know, having that system, that framework that will support our young people to progress successfully. Supporting young people most at risk through transitions, tackling disadvantage, removing barriers, supporting careers leaders, and, you know, we talk about the careers leader training, which many people find the benefit in helping them understand the role and working with other careers leaders in developing their role. Seeing careers education as part of economic recovery, being aware of local priorities, local labour market information, and how careers can link up with that. And as we've alluded to earlier, about having employers having sustainable, mutually beneficial partnerships with schools. So those are the CEC company objectives that we are founding our priorities are on. So in terms of our priorities that we've been sharing recently with our strategy group and our cornerstone employer group and other strategic partners, our mission remains that as Birmingham Careers Hub, we are a collaboration of employers, schools, colleges, providers, working together to prepare young people for a successful future, which will vary according to the, you know, the individual needs of those young people. So these are our sort of key objectives for this year, and please do, if you have any comments, how they, if you feel anything's missing or any questions about them. We aim to be a high performing, fully inclusive careers hub, and that's the focus of the Careers and Enterprise Company very much. And for us in Birmingham, it's all young people. You know, it is about all young people, but recognising individual needs as well. So again, reflecting the Careers and Enterprise Company's strategic objectives, making sure all young people receive information and support for transition and sustain the destination of their choice, not just not being neat, I know that's a double negative, but being in a sustained, appropriate destination. All young people being aware of the range of pathways, all young people, their parents, their carers, their advisors being aware of the range of pathways. All young people receiving a meaningful encounter of the workplace. As I was showing the data earlier, we know that that benchmark 6 has taken a battering, and it's, you know, talking to an enterprise advisor earlier, you know, he was saying how he works in another area, but the school he's working with, it's about backfilling almost, going back to our current year 11, what have they missed out on to ensure that they can receive those experiences they need to progress. Creating, supporting careers leaders, not only through the national training, but through events like this. You know, we talk about, you know, this careers clinics, providing the opportunity for you to provide peer-to-peer support, our mini clinics, another forum to be able to help you deliver a strategic programme. And focusing now that, again, focusing on young people, but using those Gatsby benchmarks as the tool to be able to support young people, and all schools achieving a minimum of 3. And we're pleased that many are well beyond that at this start of the year. And again, focusing on our employer engagement and wanting to be working with a network of employers who are representative of the school, college communities and our local sector priorities. So recruiting enterprise advisors, working with organisations that reflect the communities in which our young people live, and also the sector, the local enterprise partnership sector priorities as well. So that's a key, a very fast journey through our priorities. I don't know if anybody's got any questions or comments. Please do put them in chat, or anything you'd like to add, amend. I'd be pleased to hear from you. I'll take silence as agreement, unless you've all gone to sleep or left me. I don't think so. But that's at that stage, I think we'll move on. We just wanted to make sure you were up to speed with what we were working towards in terms of our key objectives. And yes, clearly they will form the basis of the work that we're doing with you this year. Okay, thanks, Debbie. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Claire now to talk about any other business and to open it up to the floor. Thanks, Claire.
So just to round off then, just a few reminders. Firstly, memorandums of understanding. We do have the majority that have been returned to us, but still a few outstanding. Basically, these were sent to head teachers back at the end of July by Claire Hutchinson, the head of our national network, the Careers and Enterprise Company, direct to head teachers. So most of them have been sent back, but if they haven't been, your EC will just have been in touch to ask you just to prompt them to send that back to us, just to get that signed. Another reminder is just regarding the Careers Leader training. The DFE and CEC's key objective really now is elevating the status of careers leaders as experts. So we will put the link in the chat, and we will be sending out another email reminder. If you haven't done any careers leader training as yet, just reminding you that there is a £1,000 bursary that is available, fully funded, and we'll send that link. As I say, there's a full catalogue that you can look at, but the training is to suit all careers leaders, whether you're a full-time careers leader and you know, you're level 6 qualified, or whether you're an assistant head, or whether you're completely new to it. The training is suitable for all, and it really is valuable to kind of connect with other careers leaders across the West Midlands, just to kind of gain those skills required to build that strategic careers provision. And it's all about strategically embedding that programme. So we highly recommend that you do that if you haven't already, and we'll be sending that link out in an email to you shortly. And I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Claire. That's great. Has anybody else, any other careers leaders, any other careers leaders got anything they want to share? There's certainly, Jenny, thank you for that question. Yeah, just looking at it, reading and talking. So yeah, Andrew Webster was, I think there is training for senior leaders. I don't know if that, and we'll certainly circulate more information when we have that, but I know that has been on the cards, and we'll keep you posted. Thanks, Jenny. Any other events? Okay, well, at that point, I think we will round off. And a huge thank you for everybody for attending this afternoon. I think there's been some great discussion, very useful, you know, and I think one thing that sticks with me is about, you know, we talk about Ofsted and, you know, is that how people have seen that as, you know, not necessarily a negative, something, you know, it's a great opportunity to showcase some of the fantastic work that you're doing. And I've been saying that, I know I'm a bit of a broken record about, I never fail to be impressed about the way that careers leaders have risen to the challenges in the past 2 years. And it's great to hear about you having that opportunity to really showcase that you know, that work that you're doing. So thank you very much for attending this afternoon and sharing your experiences. Do still keep in touch. Any questions that might come to you, you know, when you're getting your tea this evening, you might, you know, please do keep in touch with us. We will be arranging our one-to-one meetings. Jackie mentioned that there'll be the mini clinics next week to follow up on the Baker Clause, to give you more focused support. So if there's no further, if anything, anybody else from the team has got anything, at that point we'll wish you all a good evening and thank you very much for attending. Thank you.